Hello, and thank you for joining our MasterControl presentation today. Today, we're going to talk about some of the best practices when it comes to managing and mitigating risk. Today, we have Pete Harris, who's with our product management team at MasterControl. I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to him.
Hi, and welcome to today's webinar about managing risk. Risk is a topic that everyone from the military to parenting have concerns about and thinking about and address every day. My name is Peter Harris. I'm a senior product manager at MasterControl, and I work on the advanced products that we are developing. Previously, I did software product management for a large retailer, and I was also a product manager for a venture capital company that invested in other companies that had blockchain-enabled products. These companies had their own set of risks that I'd have to manage, and blockchain is a highly unregulated space. And there was a lot of back and forth between the Federal Trade Commission, the Treasury Department on risks that exist in that space. I got my start in product and risk management, designing and delivering playgrounds and medical devices. Playgrounds have children on them daily, so their safety was the highest priority as we designed those products. As I go through today, feel free to make it a game for every time I say risk, preventive, mitigative, process, activity. Feel free to take a sip of your coffee or take another bite of your snack every time I mention one of these terms. All right, let's talk a little bit about the source of risk. Some key takeaways from today's webinar. We will discuss some of what risk is, where it may come from, and some management methods and tools that we could adopt or improve our current methods that we have in place. I will also illustrate ways that MasterControl helps manage risk, and we will get into ways that AI can help in our efforts to mitigate risk. To start off, let's chat a little bit about sources. In my experiences, I was thrown into a situation where the company I started working for had received a warning letter from the FDA, the dreaded red letter. I was asked to remediate the design history files and find anything that was inadequate. First thing I found that some individuals had used drawings in their signatures, such as Christmas trees, foxes, cats, but that's a story for another time. But it does illustrate the infancy on some of the practices that existed that needed remediation. In my review, I quickly found that risk was not addressed appropriately. Some instances, the risk sections for each product design were left empty, or the risk was identified, but no indication of how likely that risk would present itself or the impact of that risk. Even more scary is that in many places, there were no preventive or mitigative activities identified. This presents a great risk to the company and was one of the reasons the FDA had given a warning letter. A defect had been found and had been identified as possible, and the DHF had no documentation on how they were going to prevent it. In this case, we saw two things. Risk identified efforts were not present, and in some cases, known risks were not mitigated. All right, second source of risk is process. Sometimes we just need to build or do a thing, and we need to do it quickly to get it to market for the competition, to beat our competitors. I saw this daily while working at a venture capital. You may have a new testing method that utilizes new and exciting technologies that you just want to get out the door and provide to your customers. But if you don't take a moment to go through the process step by step, you may have undiscovered risks. Just as important, audit activities do not occur enough to help ensure unwanted risk isn't bubbling up in those processes. There could be insufficient parts of the process or some gaps. Humans, which is possibly the greatest source of risk, are the cause of some of these. The failure to walk through a process all the way through and break down that process enough to identify any risks and to know where the risk will occur or not occur is a great contributor to our risk management woes. Some of these processes to consider, there's a lot that we need to do for a thorough walkthrough are manufacturing, quality, purchasing, training, supply chain, packaging, labeling, distribution, in-market use, complaint handling, just to name a few. We should be analyzing, reviewing all of these processes in our risk management practices. If you aren't using a robust QMS system that helps manage your processes, you can create risk trying to manage the process on your own. A QMS helps you establish control, including risk management practices. This also takes the human element of causing risk out of the equation. We'll talk about this more later. Last, suppliers. Sometimes risk originates from our suppliers. Lack of supplier qualifications or not focusing on risk in those qualifications, inadequate audits, and ineffective supplier correction actions can cause more risk than is needed in an organization. In a global survey conducted by McKinsey earlier this year, nearly 50% of the respondents cited sole sourcing of inputs as a critical vulnerability, and 25% point to a lack of visibility into supplier risks. So, supply chain is definitely an area we all should focus on when performing risk management. Next, how do we prevent risk? The Bible for risk management is ISO 14971. Many of you are more familiar with this than I am, but there are three things that stand out as examples of risk-based thinking in the documentation. Inherent safety by design, protective measures in the medical device itself or in the manufacturing process, and information for safety. First, inherent safety by design. With all the points from ISO 14971, the best way to prevent risk is not to introduce risk in the first place. This is really easy to say, not really easy to do. But in these principles, this specific one in 14971, it speaks to designing products and machines to make products where error is very limited or eliminate the human error entirely. Next, protective measures in the medical device itself or in the manufacturing process. In this, we can use technologies which are low or to no maintenance at all. We can have standards for guards and shields to protect operators. We can create alarms and alerts for machines and devices to help indicate when there are errors and there are issues. Last, information for safety. In this, proper training is important and making apparent, clear, and human-readable warning and caution information. A test, a machine, a process, anything that will require an operator to help them feel confident in the process and be safe. Instructions for use is included in this for the end user. These three principles and much more from ISO 14971 documentation helps establish standards that you should create in your risk-based thinking. Risk-based thinking is something that happens not only throughout the organization, but also should be addressed in a quality management system. A great digital quality management system should be able to manage risk using everything from document control, proper training, preventing and managing quality events, taking a risk-based approach to validation, and managing all associated data for tracking and compliance. Next, when preventing risk is the actual preventive action. I worked on a project once to move a machine from one manufacturing facility to another. The machine that was moved had a mylar material that was used in the process, with only a few rolls left. This was not very much material and would lead to a stop in manufacturing if more of this critical material wasn't purchased. I referred to the DHF to figure out how can I source this material, and if there were any alternative sources if our supplier was unable to provide it anymore. All I could find was a document in German, and it was difficult to translate. I couldn't read the specifications. I didn't know the contact information for the supplier to purchase more and to source that material from somebody else with those specifications. There are no plans in the original process for this product to account for the mylar material running out. In short, we did run out, and our company ended up stopping the production of this product. We weren't able to release any to our customers, and it hit us in the back end. All this could have been prevented if proper planning had taken place, including alternate sourcing of the mylar and proper accounting and procurement of the material. The risk was identified but never planned for. Identify risks during the design and make plans to prevent it. And all along with this, the design input should be rooted in real market feedback and tied back to the design itself. When you identify a risk before it occurs or after it occurs, the best activity is to remove it completely. As we said before, this is easier said than done. There is usually some risk associated with any activity or process or any product. If you can't remove it, you can mitigate the impact it has to your business. Following again ISO 14971, you can put in measures that help create safety for those that make the product and those that consume the product. You can enhance information you have about the proper use of the product through labeling and instructions for use for the end user. In MasterControl, we have a tool called action items. Action items can be used during an investigation and as you work towards a resolution for an event. Those action items can be used to create mitigation tasks for others to perform preventive and mitigative activities to ensure that the risk that's been identified doesn't occur again or the impact of that risk is removed. We can also create follow-ups to those activities to ensure that they were performed properly and that they were put in place. We can talk more about follow-ups in this presentation later, but follow-up is one of the most important activities we can do in our risk management. Let's talk a little bit about when your risk management processes become stagnant. Risk assessment. Sometimes an organization just doesn't do one, or they don't standardize their risk management process enough to do a proper risk assessment. Also, they may not even have identified measures to adequately define and identify risk and its severity. This leads to two things, and that's actually part of the they're actually part of the acronym for FMEA. The inability to identify. In this case, the inability to pinpoint the failure mode. And the second is lack of definition, which is the ineffective analysis. Using a standardized risk scoring matrix alone helps to at least understand the impact of a risk to your own business, and is considered one of the base tools for an organization to use in risk management. Next is lack of effective follow-up. We talked about doing follow-up before. If you don't do this, it promotes stagnant risk management. You found the risk, you did your part, and you did what you considered excellent measures to contain, control, prevent, or mitigate that risk. But what now? If you fail to follow up on what you did, audit what was affected by the occurrence, you'll never know the effectiveness your activities were, and for the next point, not learning from past experiences. It creates an opportunity for that risk to seep back in or another to appear. Next, doing the bare minimum. For this point, ask yourself a few questions as you're creating your risk management process. Does your current risk management process enable you to improve? Is it focused entirely on just meeting base regulatory requirements? Does it allow for effective risk management in your company? Does it fail to avoid bias? And an example of this, do the same engineers that designed and developed the process do the risk assessment? If this is the case, you cannot get something evaluated objectively. I want to take a few moments to talk about effective risk management now. For the first point, I want to illustrate how having a QMS can help with mitigation. In this example, it shows how you can build in risk steps into your quality event management system. Doing this helps with your mitigation efforts and make them more effective. You can configure the system in a way that getting a high score or high severity on risk kicks off a workflow to manage that risk. For example, with the MasterControl risk module, you can create templates to standardize risk assessment types like the ones you see in the screenshot here. And you can develop a defined matrix to score the risk. An undesirable score in a risk assessment automatically kicks off a risk mitigation process. Next in effective risk management is response. This is another area where QMS systems can help be effective. In MasterControl's CAPA process in our quality event management module, you can create defined measures you can take when issues arise with your products and services, and you have a workflow ready to go to know what to do. It can be detailed, and it can be a guide to know what to do when problems occur and how to correct and prevent them further. Next is prevention. Prevention, as I mentioned before, the most effective risk activity is don't introduce the risk in the first place. Ensuring you have a great risk identification process when creating a process or products helps create this no introduction environment. Also, utilizing action items in MasterControl when risks are identified and defining the proper preventative measure that needs to take place to help you eliminate that risk or reduce its opportunity to impact your business is a good practice. Using action items enables you to assign the right person to do these activities, communicate the severity, and help communicate the outcome by doing these activities. In a way, it helps create a risk culture at your organization. Follow-up is the last one in effective risk management. These action items also help you with the follow-up of risk management. An action item could be a number of things for follow-up. One of the biggest ones that can be an action item or built into your process is internal auditing. Utilize internal audits to measure the effectiveness of your preventive and mitigative activities. We will talk about internal auditing later on in this presentation. Challenges of risk management. A large challenge to risk management is that it's inherently subjective. It may be based on your company's history in managing risk or your own personal experiences. Even my thoughts and opinions on this topic are subjective. But knowing this helps understand that much thought needs to be put into the creation of your risk management processes and the need to include as many industry standards as possible. FDA and ISO guidelines should be used as you create your risk management process. Inconsistent mitigation. Earlier, we discussed that having established processes and a robust QMS can help you be consistent in your mitigation activities. Having defined processes in your QMS or risk management software can help eliminate inconsistent mitigation because those activities are automatic and they're defined. Using software in this way helps you to know what you should do when certain failure modes occur. Complexity. Risk is complex. There may not be one good way to manage it. I know of a company that was given a clearance to keep producing their life-saving heart valves at risk because the benefit to man outweighs the risk of it being created. There are hard decisions we have to make when mitigating risk. All right, so we've identified a lot of problems involved with risk management. Now, how do we solve them? We've introduced ways to standardize your risk management. Having a QMS system helps you create well-defined processes that have risk activities built in. We want to talk about one that exists in MasterControl. That's called analyzer agents. Analyzer agents are a feature within MasterControl, often referred to as an early warning system. You can see an example here in the screenshot. You can set them up to look for whatever you want. But for risk mitigation, it is a great application. For example, you could set up an analyzer agent to watch for occurrences of a certain issue or a deviation from a manufacturing process to avoid the need for a CAPA. Analyzer agents can help you find matching events to known risk and track activities related to controlling that risk. You can also configure a QMS system to automatically prompt follow-up. These activities can include auditing the activities performed for an event to ensure what you did was effective and to know if additional work should be done. And also, we need to celebrate those effective efforts. Promote them and use them to pump people up to continue doing an awesome job in risk management. addressed earlier that you can connect to a digital quality event management system. Risk assessments can be built into your event workflows to ensure that risk is being considered and tasks identified if scores are high. As we said before, in those built-in risk in your event management, you can cue the system to kick off a new workflow in order to be able to handle that risk separately from the event. You can also, again, use action items to follow up on those activities and that risk assessment to make sure that it was effective. The data a QMS gathers is vital. It's permanent and it's easy to find in a QMS. The QMS automatically saves all the data you enter into it. It can be used for audit purposes. It can be used to analyze effectiveness and efficiency when doing your risk management activities. All right, the future of risk management. We're lucky because the FDA has released recent guidance on this when they were promoting risk management plans as a framework to proactively address the risk of supply disruption. This signals a further focus of the FDA of a proactive approach that they're going to be looking for in organizations as they build their risk management practices. They want reassurance that companies are planning around risk and they're making informed decisions about their risk exposure. As companies show this type of risk management, it can even affect the level of regulatory oversight the FDA has over that organization. AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. This is a growing technology and practice and theory that we have that's being implemented in all areas of life sciences. Specifically, there's a lot of talk in the industry about what's called Quality 4.0. And the most important of the 6 main initiatives that are part of Quality 4.0 is to augment and improve human intelligence. We're starting to see the AI and machine learning applications directly focus on risk management. So we as MasterControl have a blog, and we've blogged around AI tools and how they will transform quality management in life sciences. And I just wanted to read a quote featured in the blog from Charlene Bernard, who at the time of writing was the Shire Pharmaceutical Senior Vice President of Global Quality Technical Operations. She says, despite the controls our industry has in place to assure product quality, we still have failures and recalls. The assurance of our product quality is limited by the ability of our organization to access, assess, and connect all relevant data, known or unknown, in real time to manage risk, inform decisions, and ultimately enable actions. This team very much believes AI is one of the tools that can change the future. As someone that's developing advanced products for MasterControl, we are focused on implementing artificial intelligence and machine learning in our advanced products. I discussed before that I wanted to talk about internal audits. As I expressed in an experience I had with a company with starting out as being an auditor, an internal auditor for our organization, this topic is dear to my heart. Through the experience I had, I learned that auditing was a powerful tool. If used, it can help identify what was the risk, how is it mitigated, eliminated, prevented, was it effective, and does more action need to be taken on that risk? Auditing your processes in this way helps create a behavior of improvement in your organizations. You can focus not only on identification, but enhancing how you handle risk. After a long audit process, in my experience, our organization was forced to see that not doing these activities was putting our ability to produce at risk, and in turn not allowing our customers to benefit from our life-saving products. That's all I have for risk at this time. Thank you for bearing with me.
All right, I would like to thank Pete for joining us today. He certainly shared a lot of valuable information with us, and I hope that all of you out there were able to garner some good tidbits that you can take back to your organization. If you would like a copy of this presentation, we do host it on our website at www.mastercontrol.com. Also on that website, if there's more information that you'd like to learn about MasterControl, you can do it there. There's lots of product information, features, You can even request a demo if you'd like. So again, I'd like to thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you at our next Master Control presentation.